Contrary perhaps to appearances, Hyundai's second generation Kona Electric is a very different proposition to its predecessor, and contrary perhaps to expectations, it's also quite different to its close Hyundai Motor Group cousin, the car you might expect it to merely clone, the Kia Niro EV. In short, as far as it can, this larger, smarter, more sophisticated Mark II Kona Electric wants to set itself apart in the segment for compact EV crossovers.
Hyundai didn't invent the mainstream EV market, but back in 2018 it introduced one of the two models usually credited with popularising it, the Kona Electric. Here's the second generation model. The original first generation version of this car, updated in 2020, was a clone of the other key EV of the time, the similarly sized Kia e-Niro, a fellow Hyundai Group model that shared all the same engineering. Like that full battery Niro, the original Kona Electric was a derivative of the combustion model. This second generation Kona Electric, though, is now the design core around which the entire Kona range is these days based. Hybrid versions still exist, but they'll be outsold by this full battery variant this time round in ever increasing numbers. Even the old EV model accounted for 4 in every 10 Konas sold in Europe, so hopes are high for this upscaled Mark II version, which is expected to account for 60% of Kona sales. Hyundai says the car was developed based on lessons learned from their larger avant-garde Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6 EVs, though unfortunately it doesn't get the advanced ultra-rapid charging 800-volt electrical architecture that sets those two models apart in their respective segments. This is because the new K3 platform this second generation Kona Electric runs on, shared with the current Niro EV, wasn't developed for that. Much else about this car, though, is satisfyingly avant-garde, but it competes in a highly crowded market segment. Should this Hyundai be near the top of your list if you're shopping in this class? Well, you'll need the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test, to find out. An unremittingly black expanse of curved screen faces you as you get comfortable behind the wheel of this second generation Kona Electric, but press the silver start button and the instrument part of the display gets populated with round gauge graphics to the usual Korean brand accompaniment of unnecessary chimes. A green ready sign displays on the dial ahead of you, which is then replaced by your remaining driving range. It's not immediately obvious how to select a gear. The select has been relocated to the right-hand steering wheel stalk. Find that and you're ready, but for what? Well, an intentionally more mature driving experience than was on offer from the previous generation model and is provided by most current rivals. This model's predecessor simply hurled itself at the horizon from the get-go, which was fun the first time you got in it, but rather tiresome thereafter. This car, thankfully, has a more linear feeling throttle, though it's actually no slower against the clock, 62 miles an hour from rest, taking 7.8 seconds. Actually, that's not all that fast for an EV of this size these days. A rival smart #1 does the same sprint over a second faster, but it's quite as quick as you need to go in a small crossover. Though this second generation Kona Electric shares its new K3 platform with its close cousin and nearest class rival, the Kia Niro EV, surprisingly it doesn't share that car's electric motor and battery system. The differences aren't huge, mind you. The 65.4 kilowatt-hour battery we're trying here is the one that features on most Kona Electric models. It's 0.6 kilowatt-hours bigger than the one in the Kia. And there's an electric motor with 214 brake horsepower. It's 201 brake horsepower in the Niro EV. Crucially, Hyundai's made this 65.4 kilowatt-hour battery impressively frugal, enough for it to be able to deliver a class-leading 319-mile range, 36 miles more than the Niro EV. Hidden away in the small print, though, is the fact that the Kona figure we've just mentioned doesn't apply to the 19-inch rims that most models will be fitted with. With that, it's only 269 miles. If you don't need to go that far between charges, Hyundai also offers the Kona Electric with a smaller 48.4 kilowatt-hour battery, a feebler 154 brake horsepower electric motor, and a reduced range of 212 miles. With both versions, a standard heat pump should preserve those range figures in really cold weather. The top speed of both versions just about makes it to three figures, 101 miles an hour for the smaller battery model and 107 miles an hour for this 65.4 kilowatt-hour variant. There's an N-line trim package available, but Hyundai says it has no plans for a full high-performance N version like the one it's developed for the larger Ioniq 5. More relevant is the news that Hyundai's developed a new version of its i-Pedal system, which allows selectable amounts of brake energy recuperation via steering wheel mounted paddles. The left paddle enhances regeneration, the right paddle reduces it. There are 5 settings, and with the fiercest Max I pedal option selected, the car will slow very noticeably off throttle, almost down to a stop. To get anywhere near the quoted range figures, you'll need to make full use of this and select the most frugal of the provided drive modes, Eco. The other mode options are normal, sport and snow. There's not much point in over-regular use of sport. Yes, it does make the car feel a tad more urgent, but only if you flex your right foot in a way that is probably going to take an extra half hour's worth of charging replenishment. You won't be expecting any real measure of B-road driving enjoyment from this car, and you don't get it. But that isn't really in evidence with obvious rivals either. We are, after all, in an era where compact family hatchbacks of this sort are weighed down like bricks. This one, in fully loaded form, tips the scales at around 1.8 tonnes, which is always going to be evident when you throw the thing into a turn, though as usual with EVs, this issue is somewhat mitigated by the low down and central placement of the battery in the chassis. Body roll isn't actually as pronounced as we thought it might be, and there's a surprising amount of front end traction, though that's most effectively masked by the anaesthetised feel of the power steering, which when pressing on gives you very little idea of what's happening at the front end. None of that will bother likely customers very much, and Hyundai knows it, which was why the development emphasis here was concentrated elsewhere. As with the combustion, mild hybrid and full hybrid Kona variants, there's a big refinement improvement thanks to the sleek aerodynamics and lessons Hyundai says it's learned from the slippery Ioniq 6. The drag coefficient here is 0.27 CD, which, to give you some perspective, is about the same as the old Toyota GT86 Sports Coupe. Lots of effort went into that figure. The front bumper, for instance, wraps around the front of the car a bit like a rocket's nose cone. And the panel joints are pushed right back along the wings, which means that they don't take the full force of the airflow over the front of the car, so there's less turbulence. In addition, an active shutter's been fitted to the front grille that blocks the opening when that isn't required for cooling. The result of all this is an impressive level of hush, even for an EV. All the absence of an engine does in a lot of electric vehicles of this size is to further emphasise wind and tyre roar, but that's far less evident here. And this improvement is matched by a higher standard of ride quality, which is supple and aided by the stiffer platform with its greater use of high-strength steels. There's also quite a lot more drive assist tech, including a standard highway drive assist system that can control steering, acceleration and deceleration, and allow lane changes with an indicator stalk press. It's all the kind of thing you might expect from a slightly larger EV than this, which is evidently exactly the kind of car this Kona Electric now wants to be. Designing a car from scratch primarily as an electric vehicle ought to make it significantly different from a model created for combustion. On an EV, the wheelbase is usually longer, so passenger space can be greater, particularly in the rear seat where there can be a flatter floor. Another common mark of a full EV platform is a frunk, the use of under-bonnet space for extra cargo storage. Because, unlike its predecessor, this Mark II Kona was primarily designed as an EV, all these hallmarks are in evidence. And they make the second generation Kona Electric considerably easier to live with than the first. Now we'll get to that, but let's take a look at the outside first. The looks here have evolved too, though not perhaps by quite as much as you would expect, given the more sophisticatedly electrified K3 underpinnings. The easiest way to tell this electric version apart from its combustion counterpart is here at the side, where the body-coloured wheel arches lack the angular black cladding that features on the hybrid models. Otherwise, this full electric Kona hasn't been visually differentiated from its combustion mild and full hybrid stablemates in any significant way. So, as with those variants, this is now a significantly larger car. True, it's still slightly smaller than its Kia Niro EV close cousin, but compared to the original Kona Electric, this 4.35 metre long version is 175mm longer and 25mm wider, sitting 20mm higher. Roof rails are standard, but if you want to add a contrast coloured roof, you'll need one of these sportier N-line spec variants. Most models have these big 19-inch wheels, but with this ultimate trim level, the smaller 17-inch rims you get with base spec are a no-cost option if you want to maximise range. At the front, the twin-creased, smooth-surfaced clamshell bonnet has a leading edge above a super slim full-width light strip. The headlights and indicators sit in separate corner clusters, and this electric version is set aside from the combustion model by this smoother-looking front end with its larger corner-like clusters and completely different lower grille section, just above which the charging flap is offset to the right. The rear is equally distinctive, with light clusters built into the rear of the wheel arch trim. Another slim full-width lighting strip stretches across the slab-sided tailgate, and there's a silver-trimmed roof spoiler with a stoplight in the centre and a shark fin antenna just beyond. And it all sits on a new K3 platform that's currently the most advanced chassis Hyundai has for this class of car. So, will it be as radical inside? Let's take a look. Keyless entry is standard. And once inside, the cabin is vastly different from the rather cramped plasticky affair served up before. Even this model's close cousin, Kia's Niro EV, doesn't look very similar to this car behind the wheel. There's nothing very premium about the ambience, but as intended, it feels spacious, airy and rather avant-garde. The first thing you'll probably notice is this on-trend curved dash-top screen panel for the instrument and infotainment displays, which isn't quite as wide as it first appears because the far right-hand section of the fitting is taken up by a speaker. Beyond that, stylistic details throw themselves at you, all of it quite interesting, but none of it really fitting together as part of a cohesive design. Perhaps that's the idea. There's this strangely shaped wheel with its unusual oval centre bezel, the angularly layered dash on the passenger side, and a completely open centre console that doesn't quite reach the centre stack. You'll initially look in vain for a gear selector. It's been relocated to a rather cheap-feeling hidden stalk off the steering wheel. There are lots and lots of buttons for a modern-era cabin, around 30 of them, no less, partly because Hyundai doesn't want to copy Kia's approach and use the same ones for screen and ventilation functions. For us, that works better, and it helps that said buttons are of the proper sort, no haptic sensor switches or silly sliders here, as you get in the rival Volkswagen Group ID series models. The brushed aluminium centre finish for the plastic trimming in the centre of the fascia might remind you of an early 2000s hi-fi, and there's no padding on the door armrest where you'd naturally rest your arm. Otherwise, though, there's not much to object to unless you happen to dislike the open plan feel. Materials quality has taken a decent step forward with this generation, and the things you regularly interact with, like the door handles, the switchgear, and the steering wheel now feel considerably more solid. But there are still too many hard, scratchy plastics to be found around the dashboard and the door cards. We mentioned the screens, both properly sized. Hyundai isn't one of those brands that fobs you off with poverty-sized displays further down the range. The 12.3-inch instrument TFT readout is clear enough, though what you initially think is a right-hand virtual circular speed gauge turns out to be merely a digital speed readout with a curving coloured display arcing above. On a top model like this one, the two main gauges become rear view cameras on each side when you indicate. Along the bottom of the display, you get readouts for temperature, gear selection, battery capacity, your chosen brake regeneration level and odometer mileage. And in between these two digital dials is a centre section, the content for which, counterintuitively, you control via a roller button on the left-hand wheel spoke. Using this, you can view trip data, tyre pressures, a compass and drive assist features. Everything else you'll need is to be found on this central touchscreen, which is 12.3 inches in size with this electric model. Like most infotainment monitors these days, this one can show its information via customisable widgets, the main ones covering mapping, media and EV drive functions. Swipe left and other accessible widgets scroll across your view, including phone activation for the usual Apple CarPlay or Android Auto smartphone projection, though it's not of the wireless kind. The surround view monitor fitted to this top model is helpful with side, back and zeroed in overhead views, though the car graphics are somewhat unconvincing. And it's worth having the Bose sound system upgrade that comes fitted to top variants like this one, because the speaker quality with a standard system is a little tinny. Navigation routes are calculated using a powerful server located in a BlueLink cloud, which is continually updating itself. And the screen's built-in dynamic voice recognition system, voice control, can deal with media and destination inputs, but still struggles with some simpler requests like finding a radio station. Climate controls, as we mentioned earlier, have been separated out from the screen and sit prominently lower down the centre stack, including Hyundai's usual and very useful windscreen auto defog function. Other centre screen features include voice memo, so you can dictate to the car as you drive. Plus, there's a valet mode, which via the car's BlueLink app can tell you how long and how far your Kona has been driven if you've given it over to be valet parked. There are BlueLink sections with calendar and weather applications, and you can even use this screen to follow scores from your favourite sports team. Hyundai Live features also brief you on traffic and parking availability. And in the media section, there's a Sounds of Nature feature that gives you all kinds of calmingly themed sound packages like Moment of Meditation, Harbingers of Spring and Warmth in Winter. We're not quite sure why you'd want Rainy Day though. What else? Well, you're not perched particularly commandingly, but you do sit a touch higher than you would in a slightly smaller Super Mini-based crossover. The seat's quite comfortable and for the driver has standard lumbar support, will be heated provided you've avoided base trim, and is complemented by plenty of steering wheel adjustment. An optional Luxe pack adds a so-called relaxation comfort seat with what Hyundai calls weightless body pressure distribution to help alleviate fatigue on longer drives. Frontward visibility is fine, aided by narrow pillars and tall windows, but your over-the-shoulder view is somewhat obscured by the broad rear pillars and the small rear screen, so you'll be needing that standard rear camera and all-round parking sensors. Build quality seems very good. We've not detected any squeaks or rattles on either this test car or the Kona hybrid model that we tried a few weeks ago. The airy cabin vibe is complemented by plenty of interior storage space, particularly this vast empty space between the seats. Part of this useful tray between these front chairs can be used by cup holders that click out with retractable stays. If you click them back and remove this compartmentalizer, there'd be room for something like a large handbag. Just ahead, above the drive mode selector, is an open area that'll include a wireless charging mat, provided you've avoided base trim, with twin USB-C ports and a 12-volt socket just above. Not all the storage features are as well thought out though. The glove box is mainly taken up by the owner's manual, which of course you don't need because there's a digital manual on the centre screen. And this shallow tray above wouldn't be good for very much. There's no conventional box between the front seat backs, just an open area with a lid and a lift-out tray. And there's no overhead sunglasses compartment, but the reasonably sized door bins have bottle holders and there are ticket clips in the sun visors. Okay, let's take a look in the rear. Now this is where basing the design of the second generation Kona on this full electric model ought to pay dividends. A longer 2,660mm wheelbase was needed for this version, which should really help things here on the back seat. And sure enough, once inside, it feels very different to the cramped quarters served up by the previous generation model. The boxier area cabin design helps with that perception, as do these useful quarter-light windows, though there's no panoramic glass roof option to further underline it. This certainly feels bigger than a car that's only 4.3 metres long. Legroom is usefully improved thanks to the 60mm wheelbase length increase and helped by these seat back cutouts. A long-legged 6-footer would have no trouble sitting behind an equally lanky front seat passenger. But having said that, you can really only still take a couple of adults comfortably back here, despite the relatively low transmission tunnel. This raised centre seat cushion makes sure of that. When it's not being used, you can fold down this centre armrest with its incorporated cup holders. Unfortunately, the seat base doesn't slide, but that's not expected in an EV because of all those underfloor batteries. The seat backrest reclines, but only by one notch, and there's a coat hook, but only on the driver's side. You get netted seat back pockets, but there are no door bins, just bottle holders, and individual reading lights are missing too. Still, unusually in this class, heated rear seats are standard, providing you avoid base trim. And there are twin central vents which have a cubby just below featuring twin USB-C ports. This is also where you'll find the 3-pin plug point for the standard vehicle to load system, via which you can plug in items like laptops, chargers or lights directly into the vehicle battery. That's something you won't find on most rivals. Okay, let's finish with a look at the boot, which will be accessed by this power-operated tailgate, provided you avoid base trim. The hatch raises with a wide opening to reveal a 466-litre space, the same as you'd get on a Kona fitted with a combustion powertrain. To give you some class perspective, that's 11 litres less than a Kia Niro EV, but 81 litres more than a Volkswagen ID3. You can fit 5 carry-on suitcases and a couple of soft bags beneath the parcel shelf, which should be more than sufficient for most owners. It's certainly better than the restricted 322-litre capacity of the previous generation model. There's easy access via the broad tailgate opening and an adjustable height boot floor, with loads of space beneath it for the charging leads, though only because Hyundai doesn't offer any sort of spare wheel down here. With the cargo base in place, it's quite a usable space, with a recessed area to the left, along with a bag hook and a light. Being able to click the rear seat backrest forward one notch could make all the difference when getting large suitcases in on an airport run. If you need space to take longer items when you're carrying a couple of passengers in the back, you'll be glad of this convenient 40-20-40 seatback split, though bear in mind that you don't get that with base advanced trim, which makes do with a less convenient 60-40 split. When everything needs flattening, you might be disappointed that there are no cargo sidewall seatback retraction catches, but that's not unusual in this class. The usual seat shoulder catches feature, which as usual in a hatchback are quite difficult to reach when the parcel shelf is still in place. With everything flat, up to 1,300 litres of space is available, as with all the different Kona powertrain options. Plus, as we said earlier, with this EV Kona variant, there's an extra compartment under the bonnet, 27 litres in size, a further place to store the charging leads. there are 4 trim levels available for this second generation Kona Electric. If you're happy with the mainstream look, there's either Base Advance or, as in this case, Plusher Ultimate. Or if you're after a sportier vibe, N-Line or N-Line S. There are 2 battery sizes available. At the time of filming in winter 2023, the 65 kilowatt-hour variants that most will want were priced from just under £39,000, or around £43,000 in this top Ultimate form. If that's a bit rich for your budget, and you'll only need your Kona Electric for commuting trips, Hyundai also offers this model with a smaller 48 kilowatt-hour battery, though only with Base Advanced trim, priced at around £35,000. To give you some Kona range perspective on that, from launch and as we filmed, the mild hybrid 1-litre T 3-cylinder petrol Kona models were priced from around £26,000, while the auto-only 4-cylinder 1.6-litre full hybrid model was priced from around £30,000. In most cases, of course, combustion model price comparisons here will be irrelevant because with a typical Kona Electric customer, the decision to choose a full EV will already have been made, either because the purchaser is convinced by the full battery concept's eco-arguments and financial running cost savings, or because their employer has mandated that they should be, in which case such a customer will want to know how the value proposition stacks up here against rivals. In considering that, the most obvious comparison to make is with this model's Hyundai Motor Group close cousin, the Kia Niro EV. You might be expecting that Kia to save you quite a bit, given that it uses a less powerful motor and a fractionally smaller battery, but actually a Niro EV will only save you around £1,500 over a comparable Kona Electric. What about other EV hatch rivals in this segment? Well, a base Vauxhall Astra Electric would save you around £1,000, and the difference will run to around £2,000 if your comparison point is a base Volkswagen ID3, a Cupra Born, or Renault's Megane E-Tech. You'd save around £3,000 over this Hyundai if you were to look at base versions of the Smart #1 or the BYD Atto 3. And you'd save around £4,000 over this car if you were to look at the Nissan Leaf E+. And finally, a Fiat 600e could save you up to £6,000 over this Kona. Even so, there are still plenty of other competitors clustered around this Kona Electric's chosen price point, like a base Skoda Enyaq, the Ford Tourneo Courier EV, or the comparable 64 kilowatt-hour version of the Kia Soul. And you'd need a little more than Hyundai is asking here if you were to look at rivals like the Peugeot E308 or the Mini Countryman Electric. Expect a selection of further new Chinese makers to shortly join this sector too. Of course, there are lots of compact EVs you could consider beyond the ones just mentioned, but they're either a tad smaller than a Kona Electric, like a Vauxhall Mokka Electric, a Peugeot E2008, a Renault Zoe, a DS3, an MG4 or a Jeep Avenger. Or they're a fraction bigger and sit more comfortably in the £45,000 to £50,000 bracket. Cars like the Kia EV6, the Toyota BZ4X, or Hyundai's own Ioniq 5. More compact EV models that have posher badges sit in the £45,000 to £50,000 bracket and upwards too, like the BMW iX1, the Volvo XC40 Recharge Pure Electric, and the Mercedes EQA. After considering all of these options, it's very possible that you might conclude that there's nothing quite like a Kona Electric in this segment, and there's certainly nothing that can match its claimed EV drive range. In which case, you'll want to know just how generous Hyundai's been with specification. Time to have a look at that now. All variants get a smart look with body-coloured door mirrors and door handles, a rear spoiler, roof rails and front and rear skid plates, plus keyless entry, front and rear parking sensors, auto headlights and wipers, an alarm and cruise control, a smart system with auto stop and go. There's also a heat pump to preserve your range in cold weather, an expensive extra on rivals like the Kia Niro EV and the Smart #1. There are other features that many rivals don't offer too, like the frunk under-bonnet storage area and the vehicle-to-load rear compartment 3-pin socket that allows you to charge external devices from the car's battery. And Hyundai's not one of those brands that makes you pay extra for a 3-pin plug charging cable for connection to domestic sockets. Other standard interior items fitted to the Hyundai across the range include a 12.3-inch driver's supervision cluster instrument screen, a rear view camera, dual zone climate control, an automatic rear view dimming mirror, driver's seat lumbar support, a windscreen defog function, and front and rear USB-C charging points. Media connectivity is based around a curved centre screen that's 12.3 inches in size and offers the usual DAB audio system, Bluetooth, over-the-air updating and wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring features. More importantly, there's an extremely sophisticated navigation system which is updated with Hyundai's MapCare service, and here can work with a clever cloud-based BlueLink connected routing feature. This sees driving routes calculated on a powerful server located in a BlueLink cloud, which allows for more accurate traffic forecasting, more precise times of arrival, and more reliable route recalculation. This works with incorporated Hyundai Live services, which alert you to speed cameras and provide accurate information on traffic jams and roadworks. Staying with BlueLink technology, the central screen has a BlueLink connectivity section offering a calendar, weather reports and vehicle diagnostics menus. There's even a part of it you can program to update you on scores from your favourite sports team. Remember though that you'll need to pay a subscription for this setup after the first 3 years of use. And of course there's an app. There's always an app, isn't there? Which, predictably, in this case is called Hyundai BlueLink. This includes Hyundai's wide selection of connected car services, including a last-mile navigation feature that'll take you on foot to your ultimate destination if you have to park the car a little way from it, as in a busy city, for instance. It can manage your charging regime as well and preheat or pre-cool the cabin before you get to it. Plus, of course, this app will do all the usual things that manufacturer model apps tend to do these days. You can send destinations from your PC to your car. You'll be able to remotely lock or unlock the vehicle, and you'll be advised if the alarm goes off. Using the app via your phone, you can also access maintenance info on your Kona Electric, send places of interest data to the navigation system, and use the Find My Car feature to find the vehicle in a crowded car park if you've forgotten where you parked it. If you've activated the central screen's provided valet mode, the app can also tell you how long and how far the car's been driven if you've handed it over to be valet parked. Valet mode also restricts access to personal information, your call log on the central screen, for instance. All of this comes included with base advanced spec, as do 17-inch alloy wheels. The alternative to this base trim level for those in search of something a little sportier looking is N-line spec. This gets a dedicated front and rear bumper design, side skirts, 19-inch alloy wheels, black gloss door mirrors, solar glass, body-coloured wheel arch inserts, rear privacy glass, and there's the option of a black roof. Interior features at this level include aluminium pedals and N-line cloth upholstery, plus from N-line spec upwards you get heated front and rear seats, ambient lighting, a heated steering wheel, a wireless charging mat and a powered tailgate. What about if you want something a little nicer than the two mainstream Kona trim levels? Well, in that case, you'll be choosing between extra sportiness with N-Line S-Spec or luxury with the ultimate trim level that we're trying here. Both get Hyundai's so-called full-width horizon centre daytime running light, along with full projection LED headlamps, and 19-inch alloy wheels, a surround view monitor camera system, and a wider portfolio of safety and driver assistance features, which we'll brief you on in a moment. Inside, both the top trim levels get ventilated front seats and a premium Bose sound system with 7 speakers and a subwoofer. As for specific top-spec Kona model features, well, the only real differences with N-Line S and Ultimate trim lie with exterior look and upholstery. The N-Line S gets the same exterior design pack as the standard N-Line, with its bespoke front and rear bumpers, side skirts and badgework. And N-Line S trim includes Alcantara and leather upholstery. The seats are trimmed in eco leather and suede in this Ultimate model. What about options? Well, if you're choosing either N-Line S or Ultimate trim, your dealer is going to want you to look at the Luxe Pack, which gives you 3 key features. There are premium relaxation front seats that can be reclined right back and have memory settings. There's also remote smart park assist, which allows you to stand outside your Kona and park it using the key fob, which is pretty cool. And finally, the Luxe Pack includes the brand's new digital key, which uses near-field communication to allow you to lock, unlock and start your Kona with either your smartphone or smartwatch. With N-Line S trim, the Luxe Pack includes an electric sunroof as well. What else? Well, real leather upholstery in black or light grey is an option with this Ultimate spec. And with base advanced trim, you can get an optional comfort pack, which gives you heat for the front and rear seats, a heated steering wheel, a wireless phone charger and rear privacy glass. Across the range, you'll almost certainly have to pay your dealer extra for your choice of paint colour. There's a special solid Atlas white finish and a selection of metallic and pearl paint finishes. If you're choosing one of the N-Line trim levels, you'll probably want the two-tone roof option too, not available with either Advanced or Ultimate spec. Other aesthetic extras include the chance to add piano black or brushed aluminium optic exterior highlights, plus racing stripe decals, side trim lines, side skirts, and a choice of different wheel designs. For the inside, there are LED door puddle lights, LED door projectors and door sill garnishing plates. As for practical features, well, you can add a tow bar upon which a twin bike rack can sit. And Hyundai also offers various floor mats, a front seat back hanger, a windscreen cover, door handle protection foils, mud flaps and rubber coverings for the boot area and the rear seat back. That trunk mat can be reversible and you can add a foldable trunk organiser box and a rear bumper protection foil. Let's finish with a perusal of the safety stuff on offer across the range, which remains an area where this Hyundai continues to easily meet the class standard. The autonomous braking system, the brand calls its setup Forward Collision Avoidance Assist, has got a bit cleverer, now able to detect pedestrians and cyclists and able to function at junctions if you turn out in front of an oncoming vehicle. You'd expect some kind of lane departure warning system on a car of this price these days, and sure enough with this Kona you get 2, Lane Keep Assist and Lane Follow Assist, the latter working with the car's standard smart cruise control system and using a camera to keep the car centred in lane, working between 0 and 81 miles an hour, alerting you if you drift over lane markings. Should you do that, the Lane Keep Assist system will apply subtle steering lock to ease the car back to where it ought to be. There's also leading vehicle departure alert, so that in an urban queue, when the vehicle in front moves off, so will you. Should you happen to hit something, a multi-collision brake setup works after an impact, braking the car so that it's less likely to go on and hit something else. And an e-call system will alert the emergency services with your GPS location if the airbags go off in a collision. There's also a high beam assist system to automatically dip your headlights at night and a rear occupant alert feature that prompts you before you get out of the car to make sure you haven't left a child on the back seat, which globally, every day, happens more frequently than you might think. You can set a speed limit warning and activate speed limit assist, which will use the car's traffic sign recognition system to prevent you exceeding any posted limit. There's also driver attention warning, which will alert you if the car senses signs of drowsiness from its driver. Now, to be honest, it's a feature we have a bit of a problem with. Nothing wrong with what it's trying to do, but it works via a driver status monitor, an eye monitor that tends to give a lot of false positives and hates it if you look over your shoulder to check a blind spot or reach down to look at cabin temperature. On top of that, EU law only mandates this kind of feature to alert you briefly, not to go on binging at you for over 30 seconds, as sometimes happens here. Hyundai says that some of these issues may be fixed with an over-the-air update, and it can't come soon enough. At least it can be easier to turn off a lot of the systems that bing and bong at you, particularly the one that admonishes you at the speed limit instead of having to fish around for the relevant menu controls. Hyundai provides a customizable button on the steering wheel that can take you straight to the relevant infotainment screen you need. All the usual passive safety features make the team sheet too, of course. There are twin front, side and curtain airbags, along with a centre side front bag in the dashboard. Plus, you get ISOFIX rear child seat fastenings and active front head restraints that prevent whiplash. As usual with the Hyundai, there's the brand's VSM, or Vehicle Stability Management System, which ensures stability when braking and cornering by controlling the car's ESC, or Electronic Stability Control System, if it detects a loss of traction. In addition, as usual with a family crossover of this kind, there's tyre pressure monitoring and hill start assist control to stop the car rolling backwards as you pull away on inclines. As you'd also now expect in this segment, the ABS anti-lock brakes are aided in panic stops by a brake assist feature, plus an emergency stop signal that flashes the hazard lights to warn following motorists. Downhill brake control will ease you down a slippery slope, and if you fit a tow bar, there's trailer stability assist to stop trailer snaking. With this second generation Kona Electric, there's also a spot of semi-autonomous drive tech too, in the form of Hyundai's clever HDA, or Highway Drive Assist System. This setup maintains the speed set by the driver or the speed limit on the motorway, while at the same time it controls steering, acceleration and deceleration in your lane, keeping you a safe distance from the vehicle ahead. This feature's also designed to automatically adjust your speed based on the speed limit of the road detected through the navigation system. So, if you have the speed set at 70 miles an hour on a motorway and the limit changes to, say, 50 miles an hour, the car will automatically lower its speed to suit. Clever. The Highway Drive Assist setup also assists with safe lane changes on the motorway. With the driver's hands on the steering wheel and above a certain speed, a push of the indicator stalk is all that's necessary to move the car safely into an adjacent lane if the car identifies a suitable gap in the flow of traffic. In this form, the HDA system also works preemptively, gradually offsetting the car within its lane if another vehicle strays too close and looks likely to drift towards you. Want more in terms of drive assist tech? Well, as mentioned earlier, if you stick to the two highest spec levels, your Kona Electric will also come with plenty more safety and driver assistance features. There's a blind spot view monitor which alerts you if you're about to pull out when there's a vehicle in your blind spot. And the same cameras provide rear cross collision avoidance assist, which warns you of oncoming vehicles when you're reversing out of a space. And safe exit warning, which warns passengers about to open their doors of oncoming traffic. With the top two trim levels, you'll also be thankful for a parking distance warning side feature and parking collision avoidance assist, which will search for potential collision hazards during low-speed manoeuvring. Things like little children, pets or low walls, as well as adjacent vehicles. If something's detected that you haven't noticed, the car will be automatically braked to avoid it. It's all very reassuring. We gave you the top 65.4 kilowatt-hour battery versions, class-leading 319-mile range figure in our driving section. That's with 17-inch wheels. It's a lot less impressive at 269 miles with the 19-inch wheels your Kona Electric is more likely to have. We also gave you the 212-mile figure for the lesser 48.4 kilowatt-hour variant. There's a claimed energy efficiency of 4.1 miles per kilowatt-hour if you select the car's long-range driving mode. As you'd expect, there are lots of dashboard drive tools to help you maximise economy. You'll need to regularly engage the Eco Drive mode, of course, and try and keep the power meter dial on the right of the instrument cluster out of its right-hand energy-consuming power segment. Plus, you'll need to get adept at using the regenerative braking paddles behind the steering wheel, selecting the max I pedal setting as often as possible. There's an EV section in the centre screen with further tools to help. This provides a segmented home screen that shows the battery's percentage charge status, a graphical energy consumption history and real-time percentage electric use of the battery by driving, the electronics, the climate system and battery care. There's also a section of charging and battery conditioning. And every time you power the car off, there's a useful instrument screen sign off with range and remaining battery capacity. We mentioned charging. Like its predecessor, this Mark II Kona Electric still uses a 400-volt electrical infrastructure rather than the more advanced 800-volt setup you'll find on the brand's only slightly larger Ioniq 5. Limited to a 400-volt setup, this Kona can't use the latest breed of ultra-rapid DC public chargers that are springing up around Europe, but then none of its rivals can either. In this second generation form, it does though offer an increased DC fast charging capability of 102.3 kilowatts compared to the previous generation's 75 kilowatt maximum. For this 65.4 kilowatt hour version, battery recharging times are pretty much the same as the rival Kia Niro EV. So recharging from 10 to 80% at a public rapid charger takes as little as 43 minutes. And topping up the 65.4 kilowatt hour battery from empty to full using a typical 7.4 kilowatt garage wall box takes 9 hours and 15 minutes or 6 hours 30 minutes with a 48 kilowatt hour battery model. There's a useful charge indicator next to the plug socket to show battery capacity. If you're converting to an electric vehicle from a previous combustion model, you'll obviously need to factor in the cost of an EV charger for your home and perhaps also your office. There's still complexity around the best charging hardware to choose and who is eligible for a government grant. And obviously the costs can vary depending on the distance from your main meter to the charger and other factors. There's lots of advice out there, of course, to guide you. We consulted plugmein.com, who offer customers everything from choice of charger to installation and ongoing maintenance. They've advised us that even with increased energy prices, the cost of running an EV and charging it at home on a dedicated tariff is still only around half the cost of running your previous petrol or diesel car. On to other running cost issues. Insurance is Group 25 for the Kona Electric 48 kilowatt hour and Group 31 to 33 for the Kona Electric 65 kilowatt hour. That's quite a lot more than a Kona Hybrid rated at Group 16 to 18. Insurance companies are still frightened of repair costs of EV models with serious accident damage to their sophisticated powertrains. You'll also want to know about likely depreciation with a volume brand badged EV crossover of this kind of price. Well, that's reasonably class competitive. Industry experts reckon that after 3 years and 36,000 miles, the Kona Electric 65 kilowatt hour model we're trying here would still be worth between 51% of its original value, which is reasonably class competitive, but well behind a Kona Hybrid rated at 55 to 58%. What else might you need to know? Well, as you might be aware, EV owners now have to pay road tax, but you'll still be exempt from the London congestion charge until 2025. For company car users, electric vehicles offer potentially huge tax savings as they incur benefit-in-kind taxation fixed at just 2%. Again, that'll be reviewed in 2025. Maintenance should be cheaper than it would be for a combustion engine model. An electric vehicle does, after all, have 20% fewer moving parts. And servicing intervals are less frequent than the Kona hybrids, every 24,000 miles or at least once every 2 years. And as usual with a Hyundai, you can budget ahead with prepaid servicing plans. All Kona electric models come with Hyundai's 5-year unlimited mileage warranty, an 8-year or 100,000 mile high voltage battery warranty, a 5-year annual health check, a 3-year MapCare navigation update program, a roadside assistance package and a 12-year anti-corrosion warranty. A class-leading level of electric driving range ought to be enough to sell any EV, and this one, as promised, backs that up with a design upscaled in both size and quality. Plus, Hyundai's decision not to merely clone what's available from this model's Niro EV close cousin is interesting and welcome. Unlike that Kia, there's an entry-level battery option, a larger main battery and no plug-in hybrid variant. It's a rather sensible approach on this Korean maker's part. From an electric car that this time combines sense with a good deal more of what you'd want from an EV of this size. There's a spacious cabin, plenty of equipment and a comprehensive warranty, which the first generation Kona Electric also had, hence its strong sales figures. To these attributes, apart from more striking looks, this second generation model adds more mature driving dynamics and extra technology, though some of the drive assist aids can be a little intrusive. Of course, you may not like the divisive new shape and want a slightly more premium feeling cabin. Plus, prices here have risen significantly over the previous model. Otherwise, though, most of the criticisms you could make apply to just about every other model in this fashionable segment. Adding weight and height to any car won't help its efficiency or drive dynamics, though this one deals with that compromise better than most. Which is important because the Kona faces enormous competition in a market sector that currently every mainstream brand wants a part of. So does this car now have what it takes to make an impact? Well, most agree that it's been styled to do so, which in this segment is half the battle. Compact EVs are getting better, and to get a feel for just how quickly that's happening, you've only to try this one.